But if you would have invested your money in, would you have been sitting on very good profits right now? Yes, the short answer is yes. Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. So on today's video, I'm going to help you understand the entire story behind rate cuts. There are a lot of questions that are coming up that, hey, will the stock markets fall or is the economy weak? What happens in the long term if the rates are cut? Will the US market do better than the Indian market? So what I will do is that I will explain the entire topic in very layman terms in a Q&A format, right? So I'll just try to answer 10 most important questions around the rate cuts. It will give you more clarity. It will give you a better understanding of macroeconomics, and hopefully you will be able to design your portfolios well. Now, in case you're new to my channel, my name is Akshat Shrivastava. I'm a full-time investor now. I run my hedge fund. Whatever learnings I'm getting by managing a fairly large portfolio size, I try to bring it to your knowledge through my YouTube channel. So on that note, let's start the video in 10 points. The first key point is that what is the impact, generally speaking, when the Fed cuts rate, and what is the meaning of cutting interest rate? What's the need to do it? So for this, let me take you to the interest rates in the US. And what you will notice is that starting 2022, the Feds had started to raise the interest rate from approximately 0%, and now they are bringing it down. So this was 5.5%. This is where the rates peak, and then it is being made to cut. So what's like, cutting interest rate and, not cutting interest rate? What's the story there? I'd done an entire video here. You can go and watch it, but I'll give you a very quick download on this, right? So basically, when interest rates are cut or they are brought down, what happens is that the cost of borrowing goes down. For example, your EMI payments will become less or are supposed to become less. Your FD rates will also come down, etc., etc. Right? So basically, what this does is that this increases the liquidity or the total money flow in the economy. So this happens when interest rates are cut. This also brings another problem called as inflation, right? For example, if the interest rate is way too low, it's close to, let's say, 0%, the way it was here, what were we witnessing for the last 2-3 years? Well, it was very high inflation. So this is the meaning of interest rate cut, that whenever interest rates are typically cut, there is more money that flows through the economy, and this typically leads to inflation, right? This is what has been generally seen. This also leads to increase in asset prices, like increase in gold prices, stock prices, that stuff. That's a very broad understanding. Now, opposite happens when interest rates are increased, right? So for example, in this phase, the interest rate was increased. Up until very recently, the interest rates were increasing. So इसमें क्या होता है कि basically the flow of the money through the economy is not pushed very fast. So this is the meaning of interest rate cut. Now comes the second question that, hey, what happens when the Fed cuts the interest rate? Will the markets always go up? Vagera, vagera. So let me show you a very broad macro picture here. What you will notice is that this is S&P 500 chart, right? So this you can see कि भाई interest rate increase हो, cut हो, the market, this blue line, it keeps on going up on a long-term basis, right? So this is a very important point for you to consider, that हम लोग का ये होता है कि we don't have a vision of more than like 5 days in the stock market. So उसमें problem आ जाती है, right? But if you have a long-term vision, you don't need to panic कि भाई interest rate cut हो रहा है, rise हो रहा है. If you're a long-term investor and if you have picked high-quality stocks, then your portfolio is likely to do well. If you do not pick good quality assets, good quality real estate, good quality bonds, then of course you will suffer, right? So, but the bottom line, the first key message that I wanted to give from this chart is that, see, long term mein to badhta hai. There is no issue there, okay? Second key point, that if you actually zoom in on this chart, there is like a lot of talks कि recession आने वाला है. For example, this gray area is called as recession. This indicates on this chart a recession. For example, 2020, we had a recession. But if you would have invested your money in 2020, would you have been sitting on very good profits right now? Yes, the short answer is yes. So do not get scared of like words like recession, all that stuff. This is a very important point, okay? Next point that I want to explain through this chart is कि देखो यार, interest rate cut बहुत बार होता है. It's not as if कि this is the first time interest rates are getting cut. यहाँ पे भी हुआ है recently, right? उसके बाद भी stock market बढ़ा. यहाँ पे भी they are cutting the interest rate. So stock market can rise. So over predicting the economy is pretty much a nonsense debate. The central message I want to give through this chart is कि interest rate बड़े कटे, right? As long as you are holding high quality asset, in the long term they are going to do fairly well. Okay, so then comes the next point, यार ये game खेलने क्यों है कि you have to move around the interest rate, you have to bring it down, then you have to bring it up, all this nonsense. Why do it, like, and why make like so much news on it? See, basically what was happening in the last 2-3 years was that the inflation or the price increase was very, very fast. For example, you would have seen your rents going up like crazy, your kids school fee going up like crazy, medical inflation in India was 14%, 14% per year, etc., etc., right? So there was like a lot of महंगाई. Now this in simple terms is called as inflation. Now if the interest rates are kept very, very low, then people are borrowing like crazy and spending money कि भाई free में EMI मिल रही है, right? And 0% EMI, what not. So they will continue to borrow, pump in more money through the economy, and that will keep on raising or jacking up the prices at a very fast rate. Please notice this last word, at a very fast rate. Okay. So therefore, the Fed had to increase the interest rate. Right now, what people miss in terms of analyzing macroeconomics is that we are designed to keep the interest rate low, or possibly as low as we can, because we are a growth driven world, growth at any cost type of a world. So please do not get scared कि interest rate cut रहा है, ये वो stuff की economy collapse हो जाएगी. Even if the economy collapses, then they will cut the interest rate to like literally like, 1% and try to reinstate the growth. But just to quickly answer that why do we have to go through this drama, the short answer there is that see, sometimes the inflation goes up really fast, and in those circumstances they have to keep the rates up high. Now recently the data started coming in that inflation is cooling off, inflation बिल्कुल control में आ गया है. So therefore they are now cutting the interest rate so that they can accelerate the flow of money through the economy, and as a result they will be able to drive more growth. Okay, so that's a simple point. I hope that this point was understood. So now comes the next question कि भाई ठीक है interest rate कट गया, right, and but इस बार इतनी noise क्यों? Why you are making like so much noise that 0.5 basis point cut हो गया interest? Okay, now for this you need to take a look at this chart, right? So for example आप ये देखोगे कि this was 2.5, then it was 2.25, then it was 2. Whenever interest rates are typically cut, then they typically get cut by 0.25%. But this time the Fed has actually cut the interest rate really fast. Now what is the difference between cutting the interest rate really fast and really slow? See, if the Fed is cutting interest rate very fast, they are trying to prevent a recession. Okay, अभी तक बात इतनी हो रही थी कि अच्छे recession आ जाएगा, global economy is not moving, people are not spending money, private consumption is drying up, this that stuff. Okay, fine. So Fed will say, okay, fine, I'll cut the interest rate fast. Okay, so here is like free money, take it. Okay, so they will move the velocity of money really fast in the economy, and then they will try to just literally create a lot of fake growth, and that is honestly that is happening. Okay, so this is a very important fundamental point to consider, that even the Fed inherently believes that hey, the economy is weak, and in order to accelerate it now, they have to cut the interest rate really, really fast. Counterpoint here is that see, this year there is US election and US politicians चाहेंगे कि भाई अपना stock market ऊपर रखें, this that stuff, so इसलिए उन्होंने काट दिया, maybe, right? So that is another possibility, but my macro thesis is leaning towards one, that our economy is actually weak. The entire world economy is actually very fragile. It's not growing at a very fast growth rate. So politicians need to create that illusion of growth, so to say. So they will try to move around the interest rate really fast in order to accelerate the growth, right? So this is precisely what is happening. So then comes the next point that, okay, how will this all game impact the stock market? Well, the stock market will go up. Why? Because the stock market is an asset price game. मैंने आपको कितनी लंबी हिस्ट्री दिखा दी, from 1976 to now. The stock market, or this blue line, has gone up like crazy. Okay, but what people don't tell you, right, or the context they don't set is that see, during this time the inflation also went up, right? So inflation means कि ठीक है, आपके 10 rupees you had invested here, now this has become 1000 rupees. Okay, but is this really like 100x growth? The short answer is no. Why is this not a 100x growth? Because of this enemy called as inflation. Ki the real buying power of this 1000 rupees what, right? I mean, if you go back to 1976, it would be a lot less, right? So आप इसको मान सकते हो कि 1000 की जगह पे maybe like it will be like 300 rupees, right? So that's the actual growth we are looking at, right? So it's not 100x, it's possibly like 30x adjusted for inflation, right? So the question is wrong that hey, stock market, will it go up or not? Yes, stock market will of course go up, but so will the inflation. Which brings us to the next point that hey, what is the game ahead? How will this Fed interest rate cut actually impact the market? I had already explained it on multiple videos. I will belabor this point and explain it to you again. That see, basically, unless you're growing your wealth in the stock market at 15% CAGR or at least 12 से ऊपर, you're not beating segmental inflation for you, right? Segmental inflation का मतलब क्या होता है कि for example, the average inflation in India might be 5%, but if you're living in a metro, Delhi, Mumbai, this, that stuff, sending your kids to private school, all that stuff, then आपके लिए inflation होगा 10%, okay? So you have to actually beat the real inflation by investing in high risk assets. Yeah, that's the world we are living in, unfortunately, and you need to do that. So then comes the next point that, hey, is an impending recession there? See, this is a theoretical academic debate. This has got nothing to do with the stock market per se. Recession आया था 2020 में भी there was recession. Okay, then there was Russia-Ukraine war. There was slowing down of the growth. Recession आएगा. Recession will always come. But what you need to do is that you just need to figure out a way to buy stocks cheap or buy assets cheap and hold them when they are fairly valued. बहुत ही ज़्यादा overvalued हो जाए तो बेच बाज दो, that's a separate thing. But in general, right, we are in a market where you need to aggregate assets really fast at the best possible discounts that you are getting, right? Now, this could be gold, this could be real estate, these could be stocks, this could be bonds, anything. So in case you guys are interested in learning about all this, I do run structured courses. In case you are interested in learning everything macro driven, fundamentally driven, actual practical experiences of me investing my money across the globe, I will help you through that entire process. So you could consider checking out the links. So, okay, so the next point that, hey, will the Indian market grow faster from this point or the US market? I feel that better opportunities right now are there in the US market compared to Indian market because their index is slightly discounted compared to India right now. And they have an impending election. So in the short term, I feel that US market is better. Now, how do you invest in the US market? Again, all those points I help you through. So again, do check out the links in the description and comment box. But in case you're just simply looking to invest some money in the US at this juncture, you can definitely consider doing that. This is not the wrong time. This is actually a good time to invest money in the US market. Okay, so then comes the final question that, okay, fine, I get the point that, okay, you know what? Inflation control करने के लिए they will increase the interest rate. Then when inflation is in control, then they will cut the interest rate, accelerate growth. But can this always be done? क्या ये हमेशा के लिए कहानी हो गई कि this will keep on doing, or will the economy actually bubble up so much and it will burst like 2000 bubble, Harshad Mehta scam bubble, and all these 2008 bubble or 2020 bubble, all that stuff. I think a great case study is after 2008. Actually, if you speak with slightly more seasoned investors, who are investing like 80s, 90s, all that stuff, they have a very different perspective, and a major macro change has happened, which is called as quantitative easing. So this entire game of money printing and introducing too much liquidity in the market, this actually started happening after 2008. In fact, the Fed chair during that time, Ben Bernanke, he was given Nobel Prize in economics for this entire game, right? Of printing money literally. This game actually started after 2008. So after 2008 से पहले का अगर आप study कर रहे हो stock market, I'm not saying that it's pointless, but quantitative easing, QE, it has fundamentally shaped the way the asset is being aggregated. Now, इसके repercussions हमें पता चलेंगे आज से 50 साल बाद, after 50 years. I am personally aggregating a lot of assets, whatever hard assets I can get my hand on. I am purchasing real estate. I'm a believer in real estate also. Yes, I grow my wealth in the stock market, but whatever profits I am making, I have a sensible allocation to hard assets also. I feel that this is going to be critical going forward. This is not a point that many people are understanding. Again, this is not a recommendation. आप है ना builder से जाके घर खरीद लो 2 BHK and all that. No. Whatever assets you are buying, be it stocks, be it real estate, you have to buy quality. How to judge that? All that stuff is a question for further discussion. But I hope that this quick topic on interest rate cuts gave you clarity on where we are heading. Finally, just to conclude, I feel that this game is not changing anytime soon, at least for the next 10 years. Yahi hoga exact model, whatever we have seen after 2008. The way this will bubble up and die is very simple, that you will start witnessing very high inflation and very high asset returns. So for example, you might be making like 15% CAGR from the stock market, but inflation also will be like close to 12-13%, right? Now, this is a game where we are heading towards. Therefore, it's very important to learn how to manage your risk systematically and properly. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you soon.